So what's the difference between the words ignorance and apathy? I don't know, and I don't care. I don't know why that makes me laugh every time. The morning group didn't really laugh as well as you did. I think they were still kind of asleep, but I don't know and I don't care. Which one is worse? Which one is worse for us to experience? Someone who doesn't know something about us, maybe something important, or someone who doesn't seem to care? I would think it's that they don't care. There's a lot of things that can be forgiven quickly if someone just doesn't know. As an example, one of the most difficult things, as a priest, and this is just the way the system works, is it's sometimes hard to know when people are in the hospital because they don't just call. That's about keeping people's rights and protected, that they don't just call people and let them know. So you have to give them permission to let us know, or you have to reach out yourself to let me know that you're in the hospital. And so sometimes it happens that I'll find out way after. And so when that person says to me, "Father, I was in the hospital," I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." And usually they're like, "Oh, it's totally fine." But what if you're in the hospital and you call me and I say, "Yeah, I just don't care"? Uh-oh. Yeah, you would never want to hear that from your priest. It would be hurtful. It'd probably really hurt. And so I think we can all think of different examples in our own lives about people who do something because they just didn't know, they were ignorant, and things where they just didn't care. And those are the ones that really bother us. But in our gospel this weekend, Jesus is not ignorant and he's not apathetic. In other words, he sees and he knows what's going on in the lives of those he is encountering, and he responds to it with great care and concern. For example, as the gospel opens up, what happens? Well, just last week, Jesus sent out the apostles. He said, "Go, preach, teach, heal, cast out demons, do all these wonderful things." And that's what they do. They go and they heal, they preach, and they teach. And they've returned, they've come back. And that's the opening line of our gospel today. And Jesus, I think, recognizes very quickly they're tired. They're exhausted. So he says, "Come with me so we can rest for a while." So he sees his apostles, that they're tired from all this, from the journey and from the work they've been doing, and he's moved to help them and to give them rest. And of course, wouldn't you know it, they go to find rest, and the people follow. And one of the most interesting lines in this gospel is when Jesus is like, "Well, okay, they're still following us. Let's get in the boat and go to the other side and try to get away from them." But it's because he's so aware of the need for his apostles. So they get in the boat, they go to the other side, they disembark, and what happens? Everyone's followed. Really quickly, there's a large crowd, and Jesus sees the crowd, and his heart is moved with pity, and he begins to teach and preach. He sees them, he knows the people need him, and he's aware of it, and his heart is moved. He cares for them, and he responds to their need. He begins to preach and teach. That's the good news for us this weekend, that Jesus sees us, he's aware of our needs, and he responds to it. He cares, and he's going to do something for us. He'll intervene just like he did in our gospel. I was thinking about an example of this, and I think a good example is, honestly, it's bench pressing. You're probably thinking, well, what does that have to do with Jesus? Well, let me explain. Anybody that's ever bench pressed in their life, has at least done a set or two, knows that one of the cardinal rules or things that you need to do when you bench press is you need to have a spotter. Why? Because when you're lifting that kind of weight, as you're lifting, at some point, when you do a rep and you can do it easily, and then you get to a rep and all of a sudden you fail and the bar begins to fall. So you need someone who's there, who's ready in an instant, who sees, okay, you can't do this anymore, I'm going to now help you. And of course, what spotters usually do is they now start to assist you until you get to your 10th rep or however many you're trying to do. And I think this is a really good example of what Jesus does for us. He's there watching over us. He's waiting, and then once he sees us in need, just like someone who's lifting on a bench press, he responds quickly and he begins to help us. But the other thing that's important for us to recognize is that we still have to do our work. He doesn't just lift the bar, we have to continue to lift it ourselves with him, because he likes to do things alongside us. So the good news is that he sees us and he responds to our need. So last week, I had a great time with my family, and we were camping, and it wasn't really camping. It's camping at my mom's house. She's got 3 acres, and they all bring their tents and things. I sleep in my house here. 66 degrees of air conditioning is great for me. I don't do the hot, humid thing at night anymore. But anyway, it was a great weekend, and my nephew Simon, who's about 2.5, he's becoming very talkative, and he's saying all these fun things. And throughout the entire weekend for Simon, I was Uncle Steve. Uncle Steve. Then Sunday morning comes along, and I'm putting on my alb and my chasuble, my vestments for Mass. I'm getting ready to celebrate Mass for my family, and there's Simon, and he goes, "Oh, it's Father Steve." Like he knows the difference, This is great. So I'm celebrating Mass, and I get to the point of where I hold up the Jesus in the Eucharist, and I say, "Behold." And as I say, "Behold," I hear Simon go, "No, I don't want Jesus." And I'm like, "Dude." And then I hear my brother-in-law Will go, No, you want Jesus." He goes, "No, I don't need him." And I'm like, "Behold." I could barely get it out. At that point, he was done. He wanted to move on. But how many of us think that we don't need Jesus? I mean, really. How many of us, at some point, we just think, I don't need God's help. I can do this on my own. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's going to sound a little harsh maybe, but if you think that you can live this life without Jesus, you're deluding yourself. It's not possible. To live life without Jesus is like bench pressing without a spotter. At some point, it'll catch up with you, and the bar of worldly anxiety will fall on your chest and crush you. I guarantee it. If we don't have Jesus, who is there to help us in all of our needs, our life will fall apart. And in the midst of a storm or a mess or whatever type of suffering you want to talk about, Jesus is the only one who can get us through. And so when life gets hard, that's like the bench press getting hard. He's helping us lift it, but we're doing our work with him along the way. But we need him. And so I think the other part of the good news for us is not only that Jesus sees us and responds to our need, but that our heart becomes aware of how much we need him. And in humility, we go to him. Because in the awareness of our need, we say, and I know, Lord, you care, so I'm going to go to you now. Because I know you're going to give me what I need to get through this thing. So may we have the courage to receive the help from our Lord Jesus, who sees our need and desires to help us, by admitting in our own hearts, Lord, I need you. And I know with your grace and with your love, I can accomplish this thing with your help.